Hello and welcome to my presentation, Boost Your Dev Pipeline. In this presentation, I will talk about the recent changes we did to the project create command inside the shopware-cli and changes we did to the local environment generally with shopware. Short about the agenda, I will quickly talk about the current ecosystem, how local development is right now. Then I would like to talk about the shopware-cli, what we did there in the last month and what we plan also to do later on. I will come to the end. I will also like to talk quickly about deployments at all, like how we imagine they should work and how we want to make it also like in the future better, that it should be like everywhere in that way. And with me in the stage is Cody, our ASCII art, which you can find here also like as an elephant, which will be with the next shopware-cli version also in your terminal. So, short about me, I'm Sayakci. I'm also mostly known as Shyam. I'm now almost working 8 years for shopware. Before that, I was in agency, so it's, I think, 12 years in general in the shop ecosystem. What I do at shopware is building developer tooling, so I'm building stuff like the shopware-cli, deployment helper, PHP Storm plugin, so everything which is like developer related, which makes your life easier. And you also maybe know me from Friends of Shopware, so maybe also from Frosh Tools, I think one of the most popular shopware plugins, and so on, so I'm contributing there also. So let's come to my actual talk. The problem we are always seeing is that shopware development feels a little bit chaotic, especially for like newcomers. The thing is, when you go to the shopware documentation, you have various ways to run shopware. So we have like many people which have like a Docker setup, built like grab from somewhere, I'm using it. We have people with using like native PHP, which is like fine, and maybe have it even abstracted with things like a valid map. People from the Symfony ecosystem may know like Symfony CLI. We also pushed for years DevEnv. And there's also like Dockware, which is also like very popular in the ecosystem. And that leads like to fragmentation. So as an example, if I would ask 20 people here, we will come at least to like 10 options how people run shopware locally. And that makes like it a little bit complicated for newcomers because they don't know which of that options to choose, which is the best for them. And they all feel different, they work a little bit different with the storefront watcher, admin watcher, and so on. And we can't, as shopware, like make the best experience because there are so many ways to do it. And what we want to do here is we want to have like one golden way to do it. So from bootstrapping shopware locally, creating a new shopware project, to like developing locally, to deploy it to your staging production. So we want to have like one golden way. What's the right way we intend as shopware? How that should be done? And what we want to do here is we don't want to require PHP locally because we see like many people coming from like Node.js, Ruby, whatever seen before that, what they did, they don't have a proper local PHP environment. And setting up a PHP environment as a newbie, it's also like a struggle. You need PHP extensions, you need some configurations in your PHP, and so on. So we don't want that newcomers have to struggle with that. So we want to utilize here Docker, which is like the industry like standardization here. As yesterday, Apple released Apple Containers 1.0 at the WWDC. Therefore, like even vendors like Apple and Microsoft pushing Docker in their operating system. And even last week, Microsoft built VSLC has been released, which is Docker by Microsoft itself integrated directly in VSL. So even the major platforms are pushing Docker. Therefore, we want to go also there. And of course, with Docker, we come also to this consistent developer environment. It works on my machine. It will work also on my colleague's machine because we are shipping basically the container, which the complete runtime is. And with that all, we want that developers spend on the features and not have to fight with their tooling. My watcher is broken because I have whatever in my environment, because at the end we all want to just develop and ship our shit to production. So, and what we are doing here is we want to make it like really, really, really easy to do it, to create a shopware project and run it locally. So we have like 3 commands. Basically, it would be just 2 commands, because in the second command, we're switching the directory. Let's count to 3. So we're creating a project, shopware-cli project create. You can directly name the directory. And then we cd into it, and then we run shopware-cli project dev. And with that, we have a complete working local environment. And with that, we have like no make files, because as you didn't know, Makefile is completely different between Linux and macOS. It's completely different. And therefore, we like abstract it into our CLI. So let's take a look quickly what Project Create does, because it changed a lot in the last month. In the last month, we changed Shopware CLI, Project Create, to be completely different. So we have added a wizard here. So we check also like for common installation things. So we added basically a wizard, so you will be guided through multiple sections. And we added like check for common installation problems, because Docker is not everywhere the same. Docker works a little bit different on macOS and on Windows, which they try to make similar, but there's little bit tweaks which you can change to have it in a better shape. And therefore, what we are doing here is we're checking like how your local Docker desktop is configured, and we recommend you to change things so shopware works better in your Docker container. So we try to make it like easy as possible. What we're also doing is we are now recommending Docker by default. So when you create a project, you will be like by default opt in to use Docker. You can still opt out and use your various other options you already right now have. Also added is, at the same time, we added like a lot of optional things which you may need in your local, when you create a new project. So we have added like deployment templates, so you can choose between like deployer, which is more common when you use SSH deployments, or platform SSH, which is now Upsun, or our Parse native, so you get already the deployment configured. Also, you can choose like if you want to have OpenSearch or Elasticsearch, AMQP, and even we deliver now like CI/CD templates for GitHub Actions and GitLab pipelines. So you are directly ready to run with formatter, project validation, and so on. And they are reusable. You can like you reference to us when we update it, you have it. It's like not a copy. It's your reference to our maintained recipes. And to the project dev itself. You run project dev. It feels a little bit magic, but what we at the end we do is like we generate a compose YAML. So if you know Docker, you can still go and create a compose override YAML and do whatever you want. But in the first place, we manage it to make it like simple, and it's kind of like a thin wrapper around Docker Compose. It's a thin wrapper, but it looks beautiful in the terminal because we have now a tree inside the terminal. So you will be greeted by our Cody ASCII, which says like it's starting the Docker container. So you have a live status update. You see like what the container status is and so on. So after the containers has been started, what we are doing is we are checking is the shopware project initialized yet? Because the difference is we first created the shopware project, so we have the source code of shopware, but the database is not populated. We didn't create a theme yet, and sales channel, and so on. So it detects that and guides you through that. So at this point, you can decide to do it completely in the terminal. It feels a little bit like installing Windows XP, to be honest, but it's pretty cool. So you can choose like your language, the currency, admin, and so on, and then go in. Or you just say like no and go to the admin, and you can do it in the web browser. And when you have done that, you will land at a dashboard. In the TUI dashboard, on the top left, you see the shopware version, where your environment is locally running, where you can find the admin, what are the credentials for the admin? Because when you're new, it's like for us, which doing shopware so often, installing admin shopware, obviously, but as a newcomer, like you try maybe demo, tested example, but nobody come to that. There, you have it. So let's make it simple. And you can see like the watchers and also the services around, because shopware is not just a PHP software. So we need like services like a database. So we have also like Netminer, so you can take a look into the database, Mailpit, so you can see your outgoing mails and so on. So you have everything on that. And on the top left, you have this 1, 2, 3. Yes, it's tabs inside the terminal. So you can press 2 to switch between the tabs, which is pretty nice. So we have here also like an integrated log viewer. So on the left side, you see like all containers running. And at the end, you have like all log files which are in your regular var log file. So you can just go there and look and search and so on. It's just like convenient to do it. In the third tab, what we have added is like you can change the like local environment. What we know right now have is you can change the app environment quickly, enable, disable HTTP cache. We will like further expand it in the future based on your feedback. I will come to that later. And you can like choose the PHP version you want to use. By default, we use always the newest one, because we want that you use the newest one, because why not? You can use the newest PHP features. Nice. And what you can also configure is the profiler or debugger, because at some point you may need it. So you can choose between like Xdebug, Tideways or Blackfires, but of course you will need like a subscription at Tideways or Blackfire. But even then we guide you through, so you will get a pop-up inside the TUI asking you for the credentials of each provider you choose. So it's really convenient to set it up. And what about the watchers? We cannot add like 4, 5, 6, 7. We don't have anything anymore then to hotkey anything. So what we have is the command plate. So in the terminal you can press like Control P. It's a little bit like your PHP Storm quick action or VS Code. And there you can search like fuzzy search like start me the admin watcher, build me the admin, start clear me the cache, and then it runs that. And in the dashboard, then you have like the status if the watcher is running or not, and where it's running at which port, and where you can find it. With that, we also improved a little bit the UX, because the most problem sometimes with the storefront watcher is when you have multiple sales channels, they look mostly different because they are maybe different brands. And now you can even choose like for which sales channel you wanna start the ad, like storefront watcher. So the watcher starts with the correct theme and the coloring and so on, even with that. And that sounds like everything really cool, but you don't want to obviously start a new shopware project to use that. So Cody is here to rescue you. Of course, Cody is here with a migration wizard. So when you run the command first time in a shopware project, which still uses something else, we come with a migration wizard and ask you like a few questions. And we also try to detect here things like we looked like which shopware version you're using, so which PHP version would make sense. So we don't recommend you versions which doesn't work actually with the shopware version. And after that, you land at the same screen and can go with that. And TUI is nice for humans, but you maybe want to script things. Therefore, what we have also is that the commands are like scriptable. That's like pretty important, especially in the day of AI agent. So because I tried to let Claude also like, please use the shopware CLI to create a project for me and run it. With that, it can do it because it's not stuck in the TUI. So you can run shopware CLI project dev start. It starts the environment, like it doesn't block the terminal and so on. And of course, you can use also the regular commands which are not TUI, like admin watch, storefront build, and so on. and also like project logs and so on. So the AI agent can now also grab the logs, current logs and so on. And there are like also commands which you want to run are like bin console scripts, like inside the shop application itself. So what we have done here is like a console proxy, because the most feedback, I would say the developers most hated about Docker setups is they have to go inside the Docker container, which is fine. You can add an alias, make shell, whatever, but then you don't have your shell. And developers are a little bit picky with their shell. When you have like ZSH, fish, and it's in the terminal SH, it's not colored, ew. And you bash alias you set is not working. It's at some point you cannot discuss. It's not discussable at some people. So what we have added here is like a wrapper. So what you can do is like you can run shopware-cli project console, plugin install, about, whatever, but realistically, when you type it 3 times, it's so long. So obviously we have also like alias, which is like svx. So you can type like directly svx, cache clear. And then you're done. And you can use that for kind of any command. And we also have shell completion, which is pretty handy when you don't know which command you want to run. So you can run svx, tab, and then your shell completes you like all, I think, 280 shopware commands we have, including Symfony ones, and even the command arguments they have. So you have a proper autocomplete in your terminal. That's kind of the local environment we have built, and with that, now your turn. Little bit also comes, because with that we just shipped like the most MVP, like most polished what the minimal environment would require to locally develop shopware in a proper way. And now we need like your feedback to drive this more in the future. And here we need like your feedback, what you're missing, what's not working, and so on. This is right now not released yet. I think hopefully I release next week. I released today shopware-cli, it's not there. I released something else. But when you have feedback and so on, you can go to the GitHub issue 1009. You can see also there our vision with that, where we further want to go there. And when you want to try it right now, you can run this npx commands. This will install, like download the pre-release and run it directly. And our intention with that is, now it's working. Our intention with that is that we want to help to make the community more productive. Because we are always seeing that many people go there and make like undocumented changes. They go directly to the live system, SFTP, FTP, change things, and so on. Or agencies build a lot of solutions for the same things. I saw like yesterday at a hackathon that someone built similar things what our deployment helper can do, which I will come later to that. Let's do that together at Shopware, and let's use the synergy to make one unified tooling so everyone can benefit from that, and not like Zero, everyone does it on their own. So with that, we want to get like our unified golden way to do that all. And to come there, it's like a bundle of multiple things. So we have on one side the shopware-cli, which mostly runs like locally. On the like deployment side, we have the deployment helper. And with that, coming to the deployment itself, to how we at Shopware like imagine how deployment should be is that you use like on your local or CI/CD system shopware-cli to build the project itself. So you run like shopware-cli project CI, which goes there and installs all composer dependencies, goes there and builds the assets and so on. And when you have that, you have this middle layer, the transportation, which is like depending where you host, because you have to get that code which is built to your SSH, to AirSync, deployer, container, and so on. And on the live system, we run the deployment helper. And the deployment helper here is like our one entry point to do all deployment tasks. I tried to include the deployment helper real, like diagram. It was impossible because it's too big. When you want to see the real one, go to the documentation. It would not fit here. But what we're basically doing is we are checking if shopware is installed. When not, we are installing it. We are managing the extensions, so we're installing them and doing also other management tasks like Fastly, CLI, and so on, when you use Fastly CDN. And this is also now included by default in the CLI, and our local environment uses that to bootstrap the local environment. So it's not just for deployment itself, it can be also used locally. In that way, you can also like test what would happen when you would deploy. So you can directly also do it locally. And as I have not so much time to tell what we everything have, I have prepared already, I think, 3 blog posts, which will be released the next weeks at shopware.com. So I will go a little bit more into the details because time. But I would like to talk more about the future, where we want to go with that all. And one big thing is that we want to have one CLI which can control every environment. That's the biggest thing which took right now the implementation is it's like partially already implemented. The idea is that you can run every shopware CLI project command locally and against your staging or production system which lives with SSH somewhere else. So basically you can say like shopware CLI project console -e staging cache clear, and it runs cache clear on the staging. And where that will come more handy is also things like deployment, because when we have such a system, we can also directly integrate deployments itself. So you can say shopware CLI project deploy -e staging, because we know the staging is with SSH available there. We run shopware CLI project CI on your machine or on your CI/CD, copy the files over. We know you use deployment helper because that's the best practice to deploy it. And we run it. We can do also health check because shopware has a health check system with system checks, and everything is fine. Therefore, we have even this end-to-end deployment case here covered. And as we have these abstractions that would work like with SSH or like our path solution and so on, it's abstracted in that way. And we could think about like to make an adapter pattern so everyone could extend it. If you have feedback, come to me later. But one thing we also can imagine here is like you go there and say, I want to have a dump for my production. We have that always in dump command. But now you can say like -e dump production. I want to have it anonymized, that we can do that already also. And clean, I don't want to have the card and so on. So shopware CLI connects SSH to the real server, dumps the database there, copies the file locally, and then I can in my local say shopware CLI import the dump. And I have the complete anonymized dump locally. And to drive it much more further, we could also include like the assets which are stored in the shop. And when you drive it much more further, this could be like a migration tool to migrate from one hoster to the next hoster, because we have the complete dump. Of course, you should not anonymize this when you want to migrate, because that's not so good. And coming slowly to the end, one big thing is also shopware update itself, obviously. So what we want to also add is shopware CLI project upgrade. And you get like a wizard. Cody is here, of course, to help you with that, because it can be a little bit complicated. And what we're doing here is we check if the extension you're using are compatible in the store. And if it's an extension which is not in the store, what we want to try to do is to go through the AST of the extension. Because we know which PHP classes from shopware you use, which twig blocks you use, and we know from which shopware version to which shopware version you want to upgrade. So we can use the AST and diff what happened, and if your extension have like intersects there. And from that we could even tell you like a list of that possible things could break because something in the core changed. And a human, an AI agent could like go over it, and at least we could show also like a traffic light, how critical maybe it would break. And with that, I'm coming slowly to the end. I have prepared a handout because most things are already like documented. And before I say thank you, please go to the GitHub issue 1009, give your feedback and so on. We also do bi-weekly inside Discord, community Discord, in community call from developer experience where we talk about such things. So you don't have to wait for SCD. You can also come every 2 weeks to our Discord and then give us feedback if you want to do it voice by voice. Thanks.
Thank you. Who's happy now? Thought so. How much will it cost?
Nothing.
Okay, so yeah, open source free. Exactly. Thank you so much for the talk. I actually don't have any questions rather than how fast are you going with development? Like, give me.
A lot.
Right, so it's your main project, that's where you put your work?
No, I have 3 projects.
No, you in the team.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the developer.
Yes.
Sonar is not alone.
Not
luckily.
anymore.
Not anymore, yeah. It's part of developer experience, and so yeah, we have some people power behind it. Do you have any questions regarding what you just witnessed? Yeah, hand, microphone, wait, hand, microphone, sorry, I didn't explain. Raise your hand, microphone will be brought.
Thank you. One slide before you was talking about AST, what is that?
That's
AST, abstract syntax tree. So basically what we do, we use tree sitter, it's a Rust library, which has an abstraction around reading from almost any programming language, like converting every programming language to like objects. So we have this object with a representation of the code, and then we can go and take a look at like code level what has been changed. Therefore, from that I'm writing JSON files, and based on the JSON files, like for every minor version, it does create JSON files, and the JSON files of many major versions will be then merged to big diff, and then it takes that and uses the AST again to find them.
And if that didn't make things clearer, just magic. Okay.
Thanks. Magic is technology. So, what is your rough timeline for the whole stuff? When will it be production ready?
So, what I'm already right now working is the project upgrade. That's the next thing will come. There's already open pull request. It's shopware-cli. It's difficult to say, but from my side, I would be fine when it would be this year or everything fine done.
So there's also, it is production ready. The stable version is, but it's not all features in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
the outlook is like this, like the local environment we will hopefully release like next week, or so on. But the future outlook, the first thing what will come is a project upgrade to replace it somewhere in the web installer.
Yeah. Okay. Any more comments, questions? Yes, please. I think that's also the last one, looking at the time.
Does the dev environment also handle port collisions in case you want to run multiple projects simultaneously across like Git workgroups, for instance?
Right now not, but I had this question already, I think 1 hour ago, but we can add that. That's not a problem. So we can do command probbing and change it.
1009. Exactly. Thank you so much.